Hi, Scott Seifferlein here, bringing you another champion success strategy. And this week we're going to do something totally different than we've done in the last 6 years. And I'm going to highlight my own golf swing and some of the things that I've been working on. So I've got an example player over on the right-hand side, and I'm pretty satisfied with my setup, so I'm not going to highlight that at all. But I'm going to show you early on in the golf swing one of the things that I'm working on, and that is getting the club more in front of my hands in the takeaway. You'll see here it gets a little bit behind the hands. I like the connection of my arms, but the club head gets a little bit behind, and my right elbow goes a little farther back than I want it early in the swing. So if we look at the example player, the same position, you can see the club head is not as far behind. It's more in front of his pelvis, and the right elbow isn't as far back behind in the swing. So as we take the swing up a little bit further, from that early takeaway mistake, you're going to see at this point the shaft gets more horizontal than I want it. I'd like to see it point more towards the ball right here. So as we take the example player a little further up, you can see in that same zone he's got more of a vertical position with the shaft. And you'll see in a moment why I'm working on that and what it's causing me to do. Up at the top I lose a little bit of posture, and then coming back down again that shaft gets too flat here and the club head is stuck behind my hands, so that will result in a push or a hook depending on where the face angle is in relation to that path. So we'll see the club head come under the hands, release early, and work its way too much inside and then out to the right. You can see that ball pushing just ever so slightly to the right. Now that particular shot just pushed about 10 feet to the right is all, but sometimes I can push it even more, and if I try and save that push, then it turns into a big hook. So as we bring the example player, you can see he's more on a vertical downswing path. The club head is not going to get stuck as far behind his hands. In fact, it's not stuck more than about an inch or so at all. So he's going to come through more square as far as a path direction, and less chance of pushes and hooks. And as we take a look at the follow through, the club head is fully released and in a very similar position to the example player in the follow through. So it's the backswing and the downswing that I'm working on to get the club more on line, so there's less chances of pushes and hooks. Now we'll take a look at a face-on perspective and some of the things that I'm working on from a face-on perspective. And you'll notice that when I work on things, I don't highlight every area of my swing because I'm not concerned about every single inch of it. We're just highlighting a few big things that are directly related to my ball flight and the things that I should be working on. So one thing I want to highlight here from a face-on perspective is I'm just working on staying more over the golf ball and not moving so much to the right. You can see at the top of the swing my left hip is much further to the right than the example players, and if we go up from the golf ball, you'll see that my upper body and head position is much further to the right as well. So I get a little bit too far to the right. I'm going to back that up so you can see how that happens. And it happens early in the swing. You can see as I take the club away, a lot of weight shift into the right side, and we want to avoid that. We want to stay more into the left side. Now because I've gone so far to the right, I have to make quite a big lateral move, and you'll see my head move significantly forward starting the downswing, and that can get me into some trouble where my divots won't be shallow enough. I'll get too deep on the divots. That combined with the fact that I have a little bit of an early release, trying to get the club back to the ball in more of a hitting fashion rather than a swinging fashion. You'll see the example player in the transition, he doesn't have to move as much forward with the upper body position, so he's able to keep his head back better. So you'll see at impact his left ear is about an inch behind the golf ball. That helps create shallower divots, and you'll see my left ear is an inch or so ahead of the ball, and that encourages steeper divots. So even though from a downline perspective I have the club working on an inside-out path that would create shallower divots, my body position here from a face-on perspective encourages deeper divots. So I've got those things counterbalancing each other, and depending on which one is most dominant, sometimes I can get too steep with my divots or too shallow with my divots. Very inconsistent patterns. So those are some of the things that I've been working on. And I'll show you the follow through all the way to the finish. And then the finish position is not something I'm working on because it'll be a result of swinging the club better. You can see my finish position, the club wraps around significantly because of the hit and all the effort that I put into the swing, whereas the example player doesn't follow through as far because there's less effort, there's less forced energy. So the club decelerates through the hitting zone instead of accelerating through the hitting zone. It's always good to decelerate as you're contacting the golf ball so that all your energy is into the golf ball rather than forcing energy beyond impact in a hitting fashion. So that follow through will start to take care of itself as I make the improvements from a downline perspective and the face-on perspective. All right, make it a champion week, and I'll see you again next week.